In attempting an exegesis of Derek Jarman's Blue, I have pursued several lines of inquiries, some more fruitful than others, and as such delved into the archives for their gems and detritus. Pulling together these fragments has been, to paraphrase Benjamin, a little like laying on my back and finding constellations in the night sky. Existing as they do as fragments, each area resists the fixing of any findings. Similarly, in metaphor being essential but perhaps florid language structures brings me to the first of three conclusions, the demonstration of language as the basis of the unconscious throughout this research. Over the course of study, I have kept a dream diary, writing on waking, holding on to liminal space between sleeping and waking in the hope of exploring the field of unconsciousness. As an experimental research method, I found it fruitful, especially in the questions it raises about language when rereading. Often words appear as new, paradoxically strange and vaguely familiar, full of typos and logical gaps. The process of imposing interpretation, legibility and imagery has a great resonance with the process of watching Blue. I'll share one entry here as it demonstrates my conclusions. 27th February 2019. I dream again of the blue sand sculpture. Long rows of shelving separate students, frantic with their finals preparation. A group of rowdier boys try to keep a bunch of balloons in the air while shouting over. Two people spin tiny invisible threads into a fine silk using a frame the size of a dustbin lid. They lift the loom for me to shimmy under. As I move, tiny hooks catch me in the stomach and sting. In order to free me, they burn the silk. This burns and melts my skin. I wait with young quiz in line to speak to my employer's health and safety rep. When I return to the sculpture, it's been kicked around by the balloon boys and the pain bites in the belly once more. Firstly, language. I had to assemble through the gaps and typos to make this dream legible. It's only on interpreting and tuning into the language of my dreams I forge a synapse-like relationship with my unconscious, and I find that based in language. The practicalities of working with fragments mean the same processes has been needed through this research. I wonder if the hooks in my dreams signify a latent anxiety or are in fact a manifestation of the writer bell hooks who I was reading resurfacing. In waking conversations, I sometimes referred to my writing machine as a loom. Was the loom of my dreams a reworking of this? A visual metaphor of sand sculpture being blown away talks to an erasure and an atrophy. I now understand the fear of erasure to be at the heart of this project. The movement of blue through formats and fear of fading away sit close to the emotional centres of the belly. But of course, though a deeply personal project filled with romance, this is not therapy, so I find other conclusions about language. In privileging the ear, Blue has taken on a mobile plasticity which has been evidenced by its rich intertextuality. What Jarman offered was his personal treasure trove of life experience as a storyteller, a Scheherazade who in the end failed in her task. Despite changes in format, like all poetry, this can exist on the printed page but needs the reader, or rather the listener, to activate the essential component, communication and application of language to affect. Because this blue may well withstand any number of metamorphoses into new forms and formats, the lacerations and scars caused to my dream ego are purely based in language, but do call to mind the more callous press of the 1990s, and on the one hand make me think how far we've come, whilst on the other I'm recognising the complacency that keeps others bound in oppression. Secondly, my dream points to an intergenerational trauma. The young queers I read an element of wanting to protect a new generation from loss by naming it, thinking of their safety. Something of the intergeneration is also found in each new generation of technology and the handing down of heritage and pride. Anne Witoshik has written about an archive of trauma. Again and again, queerness is positioned as a longing, clinging nostalgia for a melancholic pain. Zachary Small seeks to explain the root of this longing. Queer artists are orphans of a different stripe. They have no conventional genealogy or lineage, no family history or record. Instead, queer people write their own history through dreams, desires and longings. Theirs is a history of things, an archaeology that affirms the existence of queerness in the artefacts of centuries past. Small describes the alienation and abandonment specific to the experience of living a queer life. Queer artists do not typically see their lives mirrored in the faces of their family lineages or the pages of history. They have had to search for their origins and attach to the past in a way that other artists whose identities and histories are documented and represented have not. Finally, and most important, form. You're watching a quickly edited scene of the sea shot on Super 8 in the late 1960s. It functions as a backdrop so that my voice is not too drowned out, but allows you to focus on my words. In An Oceanic Feeling, Erica Balsam writes, "What is oceanic feeling? For Sigmund Freud, it is the sensation of an unbreakable bond between oneself and the outside world. Rather than an assertion or mastery over the world, as a standing reserved to be instrumentalised by human will, oceanic feeling is a quasi-sublime state in which the integrity of the self is lost, or at least compromised, in a sense of limitlessness, unboundedness, interconnectedness. Blue in all its forms brings about an oceanic feeling in me, and therefore this conclusion has to exist on the screen as a moving image, to exist with the oceanic swell of immateriality. I agree that moving image performs something close to this sensation, and when watching blue, binds us to the infinite. The blues of the sky and the blues of the sea, as Maggie Nelson eloquently points to in Bluettes, are only made blue by the darkness that surrounds them. As Derek Jarman put so much of his heart and soul into the project through such dark times, the limitless expanses distilled into blue will always shine bright."